pleaded with Adonai at that time, saying, O Lord Adonai, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do the deeds and mighty acts like yours? Please let me cross over and see the good land across the Jordan, the good hill country, and the Lebanon. But Adonai was angry with me because of you, so he will not listen to me. He said, Enough, do not speak to me any more about this matter. Go up to the top of Pisgah. Look around to the west and to the north, and the south and the east, and see with your eyes, for you will not cross over this Jordan. But commission Joshua, encourage, strengthen him, for he will cross over before these people, and he will enable them to inherit the land that you will see. So we stayed in the valley opposite of Baal Peor. So, welcome back to another episode here at Just Shy of You Ministries with the guys I said Yarah. My name is Alexander Hernandez. I'm a youth leader. Like I always tell you, if you like the content that we're putting up on our channel, like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the comment section down below. That was the opening verses to this week's Torah portion, VAETHANAN, which means, and I pleaded. Let's get started. So this week's Torah portion starts off with Moses explaining his encounter or his conversation, his plead, his prayer of Elohim letting him go into the land after the account of Sihon and Og and the battles that Israel had won based on those nations not letting Israel get to their destination. Well, now that they have been victorious, Moses was pleading, saying, give me one more chance so that I may enter. So remember, Moses has been going through this journey with the people of Israel. He was the one that was chosen by Elohim, and he was the one that has been interceding and praying and asking God to forgive his people. And the moment that Moses disobeys God's word, once he ends up not inheriting the blessing and the opportunity to enter the land. And so now the people of Israel are going to be addressed by Moses, okay? But before we get to that, we're going to attack a couple points in this week's Torah portion, okay? So let's get started. ברכו אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברכו אתה אדוני נותן התורה. Bless Adonai who is blessed. Bless Adonai who is blessed now and forever. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has chosen us from among the peoples and has given us the Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives the Torah. Amen. So like I said, this week's Torah portion is VAETHANAN. It starts off in Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 23 to chapter 7, verse 11. The prophet portion is Isaiah chapter 40, verse 1 through 26, and Matthew for the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament portion, which is going to be 23, verse 31 through 39. Now, the focus points for this Torah portion are here. We'll get into the Hebrew. It says, listen, heed, understand, which equals action, do. It's not something that you just stagnate to where you listen to God's word and then you just stay there and go, okay. No, it's something that you have to hear and act on it, okay? The statutes and judgments give you life. That's what Elohim is going to express in the chapter that we're going to read. And it says, if you do them, you will be gaining wisdom and greatness in the eyes of other nations, okay? And then obviously there is a warning to guard your heart and protect what you let in to your life, what you let into the camp, and what you let in to the community of Israel and to your household or your family. The context of this Torah portion that we're going to focus on is chapter 4, verse 1 through 40. Right, the second part of Moses' first address. Right, so the first address was Moses describing how Israel reached this point, the border, the promised land, which he explained it in last Torah portion, chapter 1, verse 6 through chapter 3, verse 29. And he has summed up in what I just read in the opening verses, the journey has gotten them to where they are now. Now Moses is going to address the people, and he's going to be very serious about their purpose and what they're called to do. The first verses, chapter 1 through 4, are they call to prevent adding to the commandments or subtracting to them. The secondary verses, which is verse 5 through 8, appeals for obedience on the grounds that this will earn Israel the administration of its neighbors. And we'll keep talking about that in a little bit. And the third theme you will see is verses 9 through 31, which is urges obedience to the prohibition of idolatry, which goes back to the worship to Baal Peor by the women of Moab, seducing the men of Israel and carrying them into idolatry. Okay? So let's read. So this Torah portion starts the following way. And it says, Wa'ata Yisrael Shema El Hachuchim Wa'el Hamitzpatim Asher Anochi Melamed Etchem La'ashot Le'ma'an Ti'ou Ubate Wadishtem Et Haaretz Asher Adonai Elohei Abotechem Noten Lechem. In English, it says the following. Now Israel, listen to the statutes and the judgment which I am teaching you to perform, so that you may live and go and take possession of the land which the Lord, the God of your father, is giving you. You shall not add to the word which I commanded you, nor take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. Your eyes have seen that what the Lord has done in the case of Baal Peor. For all the men who follow Baal Peor, the Lord your God has destroyed them from among you. But you who held fast to the Lord your God are alive today. Every one of you, see, I have taught you statutes, judgments, just as the Lord my God commanded me. So this is very important, because now Elohim is saying, okay, now Moses is letting the people know that he's never been subjective to the mission. This mission has never been about Moses, and Moses did not come up with this incredible mission of delivering his people from Egypt, taking them through the desert with a pillar of cloud, with a pillar of fire, right? With raining manna, water from a rock. This is not Moses' act. This has been God's, the Creator, Adonai, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh's action. Elohim is the one that has been leading the people. And every time that the people have obeyed God, and he establishes a precedent here when he says, those that worship Baal Peor and those that misrepresented my name, they die. But all of you that decided to honor me didn't and are alive today to enter this land. Elohim is letting him know that now the commandments and the structure of the kingdom is going to be the testimony to the world that you have a just and wise God. And it's very important that we understand this, because we're not called to hide from the world. And I know that we live in a world, in a society where there's a lot of things that immorally are accepted and are normal, and especially with our young ones, right? Our youth is exposed to a lot of negative nature and a lot of negative mindset immorally, and is understood. But we have to understand that our kids and our families have the potential to be a light to the world, right? We're not called to seclude ourselves and be afraid for what the world represents or what the world is trying to portray. Because the world will do what it does, the same way that the worship of Baal Peor did, the same that Egyptians did, the same that every nation around Israel did. But Elohim is telling his people that even though these nations are acting this way, and even though these nations are establishing their own justice morally, subjectively, I, your Elohim, I have an objective to fulfill, which is bring you to the land and let you become the fulfillment of the promise that I gave to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So by you obeying my commandments and by you following my wisdom, you will be seen by other people. And you're not going to be seen just by believers, okay? And that's something that we need to understand. We're called to be seen by the world, by the nations. The world needs to see that there is a real God, that there is a just God. And the only way that we will see that is if us as his people stay focused on the objective, which is being merciful, being kind, doing justice, and doing righteousness. And this especially for the people of the covenant. We cannot seclude ourselves for what the world does. We have to understand that we live in the world and that we have to adjust. But if we stay obedient, the world will know that we believe in a real and a true God. Okay? Let's keep going. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it as it is the Lord our God, whenever we call him? Or what great nation is there that has a statutes and judgments as righteous as this whole law which I have said in before you today? Only give heed to yourselves and keep your souls diligently, so that you do not forget the things which your eyes have seen, and they do not depart from your heart all the days of your life, but make them known to your sons and your grandsons. Remember the day you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, when the Lord said to me, assemble the people to me, that I may let them hear my words, so they might learn to fear me all the days they live on the earth, and that they may teach their children. And this is where we struggle. Remember I told you last week that we're called to look back, right? Every time we read the Torah portions and you say, why do we keep repeating the Torah portions every year? Because we're called to remember. There's a precedent to what happened. There is a statement in the past that God made. It is recorded, and we're called to remember that God did this for his people, that he was faithful. And we're called to teach our children. But what we teach our children nowadays is to be fearful of what the world presents, to be scared of what the world presents. Fears comes into our houses, fear comes to our congregations, and we're afraid of what the world brings. But we forget that we are called to be a light to the nations. Israel did this. Israel became fearful of what the world could be, so they decided to seclude themselves, and they became their own little world, and they forgot that they were called to be a light to the nations. So when you teach your children, parents, you have to understand that you cannot teach your children fear. The world will be the world. You're called to be different. And if we believe in the God of Israel, and we believe in his faith, and we believe that his commandments and his structure is the truth, then we need to teach our children to be a light, to discern for what's holy and common. You have to teach our children sacred spaces. Understand that there's times for everything. But we need to understand that we live in the world, and that will never change until the Messiah comes. So if our children don't know how to manage themselves in the world, then the world will teach them how to manage themselves in the world. And I don't think we want that. So we have to be responsible to teach our children and to instill strength, obedience, honor in the God of Israel, so that they can go into the world and be a light to the nations. Okay, let's keep reading. He says, remember the day you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, when the Lord said to me, assemble the people to me, that I may let them hear my words, so they may learn to fear me all the days they live on the earth, and that they may teach their children. You came near and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire to the very heart of the heavens, darkness, cloud, and a thick of gloom. Then the Lord spoke to you from the midst of the fire. You heard the sound of words, but you saw no form, only a voice. So he declared to you his covenant which he commanded you to perform, that is, the 10 commandments, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. The Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that you might perform them in the land where you are going over to possess it. So watch yourselves carefully, since you did not see any form on the day the Lord spoke to you at Horeb from the midst of the fire, so that you do not act corruptly and make a graven image for yourselves in the form of any figure, the likeness of the male or female, the likeness of any animal that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the sky, and the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in this water below the earth. And be aware not to lift up your eyes to the heavens and see the sun and the moon and the stars, all the hosts of heaven, and be drawn away and worship them and serve them, those which the Lord your God has allotted to all the people under the whole heaven. But the Lord has taken you and brought you out of iron furnace from Egypt, to be a people of his own possession as today. Now the Lord was angry with me on your account and swore that I will not cross the Jordan and that I will not enter the good land which the Lord your God has given us to inherit. For I will die in this land, and I shall not cross the Jordan, but you shall cross and take possession of this good land. So watch yourself, that you do not forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and make for yourselves a graven image in the form of anything against which the Lord your God has commanded you. For the Lord your God is consuming fire, a jealous God. You become a father of your children and your children's children, and have remained long in the land, and act corruptly, and make any idol in the form of anything, and do that which is evil in the sight of the Lord your God, so as to provoke him to anger. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that you will surely perish quickly from the land where you are going to over in the Jordan to possess. You shall not live long on it, but will be utterly destroyed. The Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where the Lord drives you. There you will serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him if you search for him with all your heart and with all your soul. Here is the warning. Here's the warning of idolatry, focusing and worshiping idols that they will encounter in the land, because the nations in that land worship other idols, worship Baal Peor, worship Asherah, and they are depicted in wooden images that have no eyes, no ears, that really speak to you, that have any power. And Elohim says that if you go into the land and you worship these gods, you will be scattered. This is what happened to Israel, right? This is the end goal that we understand that happened to Israel when they enter the land. But he says that if you search him with all your heart and with all your soul, the intention is what Elohim is looking for. The intention is what Elohim wants. He wants a heart that is willing to obey his purpose, his objective purpose, the purpose of exalting not only his name, but exalting his kingdom, which evolves around us uniting as a community and honoring him above everything and obeying him above everything. We're not called to be fearful of what the world brings. I think that is one of the most prominent messages that I want to give in this Torah portion. Let's not be afraid of what the world brings. Let's feel courage. Let's feel proud that we believe in a just God. While the world has many justices, while many religions have many justices that are subjective, that benefit the high in power, our Elohim is objective, and his mercy and his justice and his righteousness and his kindness benefits the good of all. So parents, don't be afraid to teach your kids how to live in the world, because they are called to be a light to the nations. And don't forget his covenant, don't forget his words, and obey. Shema, he says in this Torah portion, he opens up saying, Shema, listen. And it's not just giving an ear, it's listen to action. So, that being said, thank you for watching. Have a great week. Make sure you read chapters 5, 6, and 7 as your homework. And if you don't do it, it's on you. I really can't force you. So, like I said, have a great week. Shavua Tov. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.